Recorded at the WNDU 16 News Now studios, this is the South Bend Tribune's Pot of Gold Notre Dame Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, columnist Tom Noy, Notre Dame football beat writer Mike Baradino, and WNDU's Jackson Neal.
We are back for another pot of gold because we actually have an opponent, a matchup, a kickoff time. We have everything in the college football playoff. First, that is Jackson over there. I'm Tom. And Mike Baradino did not want to go out today. 39 degrees and sunny. He's afraid of the weather, the impending weather that's coming for December 20th. So he is joining us remotely, but we will still talk plenty. Notre Dame football, the Irish, 7th seed in the college football playoff, the first 12-team college football playoff in history. They get to host the number 10 seed Indiana Hoosiers, both teams 11-1, and to the surprise of nobody, that game will be the first ever college football playoff game in the 12-team field. Friday, December 20th, 8 p.m., ESPN and ABC have the telecast. And wait, remind me again, Mike, who does Notre Dame play in the first round of the playoffs here?
Some downstate team.
Some downstate team that you would think, by the amount of letters and correspondences and DMs that I've gotten in the last 48 hours, that it's more like the University of Alabama or the University of Georgia when it comes to college football. Let's remind people that Indiana is the losingest FBS team in college football history, right?
It's usually college basketball season there right now, right?
They should be thinking about college basketball. I get that Indiana has had a great season. They're 11-1. Maybe right there with Notre Dame as the best story of college football, given what Notre Dame had to do to fight back from its NIU loss. Indiana, nobody expected anything out of the Hoosiers. They go 11-1. They're in the college football playoff. We give them credit, but at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it's our job to talk about the University of Notre Dame football team and not Indiana. No comment.
No comment.
Nobody has.
I was waiting for Mike on that one.
Nobody has anything.
We really can't avoid the fact that if Notre Dame's season is to continue, it must quash the Signetti magic that's been going on down there, save for one day in Columbus, and that did not go well when 10-0 Indiana had to play its one real dangerous opponent all year and could not stay on the field with the Buckeyes. But this one, 7.5, as much as 8.5 point favorites, Notre Dame on the early line. This feels dangerous to me. This feels a little dangerous because, Indiana does a lot of the same things well that Notre Dame does in terms that lead to winning, in terms of ball security. These are two of the top teams in the country in turnover margin, balance, scoring offense and scoring defense. Indiana, Notre Dame, right there among the elite. Only Tennessee joining them in the top 10 or top 14 even of both scoring offense and scoring defense. So Indiana belongs as much as Notre Dame belongs, and it's just it's gonna be fun to watch.
We will talk a whole lot more about Indiana, about this matchup, about everything that awaits a week from Friday, December 20th at Notre Dame Stadium. We'll talk that next week. But now the focus of this show, the college football playoff. So let's run through the 12 teams that make up the first 12-team college football playoff in college football history. The top 4 seeds. I think Jackson had all these top four seeds back in August, didn't you?
Yeah, this was my prediction exactly.
Number 1, Oregon. Number 2, Georgia. Number 3, Boise State. Number 4, Arizona State, which was picked last in the Big 12. But they get the automatic bid. So those are your 4 teams that get first-round byes. They will not play until the quarterfinals at predetermined sites. Oregon will play in the Rose Bowl. Arizona State will play in the Peach Bowl. Georgia will play in the Sugar Bowl. And Boise State will play in the Fiesta Bowl. So those are your first round buys. The 5-12 matchup, Texas and Clemson, the winner of that gets Arizona State. The 6-11 matchup, Penn State, SMU, the winner of that gets Boise State. 7-10, we've mentioned. Notre Dame 7, IU 10, the winner of that gets Georgia in New Orleans on New Year's Day night. That game will probably kick off at like 9:30 on that night. And then the 8-9 matchup, Ohio State and Tennessee. Mike, did the committee get it right?
No, of course not. You can't say that. In any year, you can't say that. No, I don't. I'm not going to say exactly where necessarily they got it wrong. And there's nothing that. It just feels like all along, each week, they were somehow a little bit off. They were, it's even to the point where on the final conference call of this process, Ward Manuel, who does not have to do this next year, he wants no part of this. He only has to do it for 1 year. He's been on the committee 3 years, and they said, "Are you going to come back to be the chair and the front man for this?" And he said, "Nope, I'm done. I don't know who's taking it over next year." And I don't blame him, because week by week he was asked about this, to the point where on ESPN every Tuesday night, and he was asked on this conference call, maybe those weekly updates and reveals even a good idea for the public faith and how this is going. And he thinks they are, because they or spur interest and the transparency. But the problem with transparency, correct me if I'm wrong, is if the key factors change from week to week, it just makes everyone confused and angry. And I think that's kind of what you feel, because I go back all the way to the beginning from a Notre Dame perspective. The NIU loss was a troubling loss. He said that twice back on November 5th. And then, like, by the next week, and certainly 2 weeks later, it wasn't so troubling.
Everybody forgot about it.
He just forgot. I mean, but it was troubling. That was what kept Notre Dame down at the bottom of the what were they, 10 or something the first time? But
the first ranking, they were 11. It was Penn State 6, Notre Dame 11.
That's right. And troubling was the term. And never heard that term again. In fact, that remains, unless I'm missing something, that remains the by far worst loss for any team to make the field.
Yep.
But there was a recency bias, I think, a lot like the NCAA basketball tournament, where you don't get week-to-week updates. What you get, one little pop-in reveal on the 16 top seeds, possibly. Tom knows better. But the idea that winning 10 in a row, that certainly meant a lot more than even what South Carolina was able to do late in the year when they got hot. It wasn't enough heat.
All right, we're appointing Jackson Neal, the college football czar, for the day. In 2025, Jackson, if you had your choice, how would you tweak this 12-team playoff system?
I mean, I think the first and most obvious thing is the conference champions, the automatic buys for them. I think you got to get rid of that. The fact that Boise State and Arizona State are two of the top 4 seeds, and if you look around at where they're at in the rankings at 9, at 12, the fact that they get buys is just kind of crazy to me. I think you just have to, if you're going to have these 12 teams, I get why you have to have the conference champions, but if I'm the czar, conference championships, I don't really care about that anymore. Just seed the teams 1 through 12, top 4. If you're going to give them buys, top 4 seeds get the buys no matter of conference affiliation.
How is Boise State the 9th ranked team in the country, but they're the 3rd team in the college football playoff?
I just don't get it.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's the thing. And the Arizona State, yeah.
Huh?
Protocol. That's the protocol. And it may change by the time they get this thing to 14 teams and then to 16 teams and eventually 32 teams, whatever. But for now, yeah, that was you kept having to do that mental gymnastics of, well, don't forget those 2 other teams are going to be wedging in there ahead of the other teams that could really win this thing. But Boise had a great year. The close loss really could have beaten Oregon. That's a drag on anybody who thinks Oregon's some super team just because they're still unbeaten. They really should have lost that game. And but Jaden Lamar, former Notre Dame decommit, fell on a fumbled kickoff return in the end zone. I guess that kind of changed the trajectory of 2-team seasons. But Yeah, it'll look different, I think, in the coming years. But that seemed to be what everybody on the Reese Davis panel was pounding. Anybody who wanted to talk about it was, why are we still reserving any of the top 4 seeds for those for the top conference champions? Because there was a gap. Now there won't always be a gap year to year, and I'm sure when they were putting this thing together, it sounded like it made perfect sense, because when they were really talking about it initially, probably the move to 12 going back several years, there was still a Pac-12, and the Big 12 still had Texas and Oklahoma in it at one point when they were early stages of talking about going to 12 teams. So it's, there's a gap now, and the ACC gets weaker year to year, but there's a gap between the Big Ten and the SEC, although the SEC is vulnerable this year.
All right, let's take the first-round bye situation out of it. Let's take putting Boise State from 9 to 3. Take all that out of it. We know that Oregon is probably the number 1 team in the country. Who's the number 2 team? I'm going to say Notre Dame.
For me, it's between like the kind of Notre Dame, Texas. I know that they just lost to Georgia, but I don't know. Still, Texas, that they're still kind of around there for me.
Mike, who's your number 2?
Gee, I wasn't asked to. I wasn't charged by the commissioners to do the seeding, as Lord Manuel would say. The data points that I saw over the weekend, and I did sit there and watch a lot of football. I don't know. I'm going with Army number 2. No, it's the fact that Notre Dame's strength of schedule ended up 58th at the very end of the day to this point, and that's ahead of Indiana 68. Boise, 81, SMU, 60. The whole thing is confounding. Who does it feel like, who is the second best team I don't know. I'm not sure Oregon's the best team. No, you can make a case. I'll just say, this is my read on the 12 as we sit here. Forget the seeding. Forget, trying to figure out where it's going to be coldest, where it's going to be unseasonably warm. Notre Dame can lose in the first round or run the table, win the whole thing. Joey Galloway, Ohio State man.
I saw that.
Notre Dame going to the final against Oregon.
Against Oregon.
Yeah. Because, you just break it down for Notre Dame. It does break nicely, as you've written. I think that's kind of the general read that depending on this Carson Beck, you got to get through Indiana. Get through Indiana first. Not a gimme. But then you're talking about a Sugar Bowl against a Georgia team that's been erratic all year. Georgia Tech had them on the ropes for 8 overtimes on their home field. Notre Dame handled Georgia Tech on down the street from its field. And Carson Beck's status is more than iffy. I'd be surprised if he played, just from what we've seen so far. The backup guy pretty good enough to beat Texas. But then, it's a Penn State or Boise or SMU situation in Miami in the Orange Bowl. I'm not sure Notre Dame wouldn't be favored by that point with 2 more wins, and depending on what those teams show, I think that sets up nicely. So you got to get through every one of these massive challenge, but if you do peek ahead, you don't mind so much that third game, that semifinal, because it would be appreciably easier on paper than what's going to happen on the other side of the bracket.
Where's the upset here in the first round? If you had to pick an upset, Jackson, who are you going with? Are you going SMU over Penn State or Tennessee over Ohio State? Or Indiana over Notre Dame?
I'm not picking Indiana over Notre Dame as of right now. I'm
you get another week to figure that out.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not making picks today.
I'm still looking at that SMU and Penn State game, just from the standpoint of Penn State being a program that consistently wins enough games to kind of always be right there, but it feels like James Franklin, we always talk about the big game with him, always seems to kind of fall a little short. I think they should easily handle, I think they should handle SMU. They should. If you look at their rosters, they're a much better team. But James Franklin in big moments, I just always get nervous. I always get nervous.
Mike, upset?
I would imagine that Ohio State's a little iffy because first of all, that's the 7-8, that's the 8-9 matchup for a reason. That'll be in prime time on Saturday night. And the last time Ohio State played at home, it did not go well, and pepper spray was needed to clear the field.
That's never a good thing.
They might, if they come when you have Kirk Herbstreit, Mr. Ohio State, going on, although he's sending his kid to Michigan, which is interesting. But he's saying that that's not necessarily an advantage for Ohio State to come right back and play the first round game at home because people may be booing the first time they have to send out the punter. It kind of makes you wonder. Tennessee, certainly a viable upset pick there, and the strength of schedules were 27 for Ohio State, 30 for Tennessee. Feels like a toss-up game to me, even with the solid touchdown spread. Feels like a toss-up. And how strong is that hangover for Ohio State? How tight is Ryan Day? Or does that somehow purge everything and they can just put it aside and everybody's 0-0? I'm not sure it's that easy to get back to 0-0 mentally after you've lost 4 straight years to Michigan.
But then Ohio State wins, you get Oregon again. And when I asked Jackson about what he would do, this is what I would do if I'm on this committee for next year. Get rid of these bowl games. Make the first and the second rounds home sites. Oregon's the only undefeated team in the country, and what is their reward? They get a bye this week, or next week when everything starts. Yeah, they get a first-round bye, but then after that they have to travel to L.A., where they may have to play Ohio State for the second time this year. Then they have to go to Dallas and play Texas in Arlington. And then they have to go across the country yet again to Atlanta and play the national championship game. If you're an Oregon fan, you're taking out another mortgage on your house to follow this team. Where's the reward for going 13-0 and being the number one ranked team in the country, as to instead of playing that game in the Rose Bowl, how about a second round? How about a quarterfinal game in Autzen Stadium next year?
Well, what if they go to 14 and there's double bye? It could be a double bye, right?
We can't even keep a 12-team bracket right. How are we going to go with a 14-team bracket?
I have no idea how that would work.
I think the top 2 would sit at home, and then they'd hash it out to get down to 6 remaining from the others, and then they'd have 8, and then they'd go from there. I don't know. The whole thing is really, it's going to take longer and longer to play it out. It's fascinating. This first one's fascinating. I think it's great theater. Even these conference championship games that Jackson denigrates. He has no interest in the conference championship games. I thought they were good stuff. It's we have to believe there will be at least one upset in the first round. That's just the nature of college football. And if you're Notre Dame, you just don't want to be that team. And the best way not to be that team is to just keep playing the way you've been and don't make mistakes that kill you and win the turnover battle and be a physical team. One of the most interesting things I thought I heard in the many hours of coverage Sunday and good for them that they came right out with the bracket. I thought I was going to have to sit around for about 2 hours, but the bracket hit pretty early.
23 minutes. That was pretty early for you. It was 23 minutes, but a lot of people on Twitter were like, get to the bracket already. Let's go.
No, I figured they were going to do the whole meet the cheerleading squad from Boise. But Nick Saban saying that regardless of seeding and regardless of the fact that scoring's never been higher, it's going to be the most physical teams up front, offensive and defensive line driven teams that will thrive in this playoff, that will win it, because you have to be built for a run. It's not anymore just win the 2 after 3 weeks off. It's win potentially 4 in a row. And the best way to win 4 in a row is to just keep pounding the opponent in the dust and just, doing a lot of the things we've been hearing Notre Dame talk about for the entirety of Marcus Freeman's tenure, and certainly for the entirety of this 10-game run, is just beat people up, bully ball, and value the football, and don't get too cute. No need to go, because throw an occasional fake punt. There'll be another Biaggi special at some point in every round. I'm counting on that. At least every round. How many that bag of tricks, guys, is deep. Would you
It's
not be
deep.
surprised? No matter how many more games Notre Dame plays, there could be a fake average over-under on remaining fakes per game right around 0.9. It's going to – I mean, they're going to – as needed.
Okay, you talk about the fake punt. We've seen the fake punt, 3 times now? But we have yet to see James Rendell just truck somebody to get a first down. That's got to be in the bag somewhere,
You've been
right?
wanting that all year.
Yes. Demand it. We demand it. Or just, it's 4th and 1, and they send out the punting, and then, he's coming under center. A man who does not need a helmet or pads is under center. Good luck stopping that guy. Yeah, you're right. You've given 15 yards head of steam. That sometimes depending on his confidence level, that's a better play than asking him to do a rollout punt. Because although he's really been much improved since his mom came to visit, apparently for the Virginia game, and because he didn't have to punt against Army, and then he had a nice day at USC, and he knows that he's welcome back next year for at least one more year. So. Yeah, a load is off his shoulders. Now let's give him the ball.
I'd be really interested to see. Remember when we had USC media access availability on that Tuesday, and we went up to the second floor of the IAC, and they wouldn't let us go to the edge of the railing because they were still working on, quote, special teams? I wonder if they were working on the Tyler Buckner fake punt pass in that situation.
Entirely possible, and I think back to early in the year, they had that play, a kickoff return where Jeremiah Love took it was a reverse off the kickoff return, and Love went up to, and I think Tui Alamaka was called for a penalty blocking the back. But
Louisville game.
We had seen that. We had that. They were working on that while we were waiting. They ran that a few times, and I'm like, they wouldn't practice that while we're standing here, would they? Of course, nobody wrote about it or anything because they practice many things. But there we were a few days later.
Wasn't that the Love handoff? Wasn't that when we were still there and the media, some of the media relations people were like, just pretend you didn't see that just happen? I didn't. I think I remember.
It's possible. It's possible. I do remember, though, seeing them run that a couple times, just kind of informally. I don't even think Biaggi was over there. They just wanted a few extra reps. Mm-hmm. The kids, like you would at the end of a youth practice or something. Kids want, it's exciting. You got a new toy, and they practiced it a couple of times with Love taking that just as it happened in the game, but then it was called back because of that. The guy kind of tripped over himself. It was a bad call, really, on Junior. Should have stood. But Buckner, we said this on this show the minute he came back. The first time we had a chance to talk about it, he would throw a pass at some point.
Yep.
And he did it, and it was a bit of a lollipop pass, but it found Mitchell Evans, and it didn't lead to points only because of a missed field goal. But that's another story.
We'll have plenty of time for stories. We got 10 days between now and kickoff. But some of the questions people are asking: A, about the weather; B, tickets; C, where can I get a hotel room? So as we sit here on December 10th, here's the weather forecast for Friday, December 20th in the South Bend area. High of 37, low of 27. Mostly cloudy, 19% chance of some sort of precipitation, and west-southwest winds at 13 miles an hour. So scale of 1 to 10, that's a pretty good night to play football in South Bend, Indiana.
I'm still hoping for that snow.
I see no snow in the forecast. AM rain showers on Sunday, rain on Monday, PM showers on Tuesday the 24th. You're going to have to do a lake effect snow dance over there, Jackson, to get the snow here on December 20th.
Well, let me just say that it's, as Marcus Freeman mentioned right away, as soon as the matchup was set, the weather factor is out the door. It should not, there's no advantage either way. No. If you're the better team, if you're favored by a solid touchdown or more, you want 50 degrees and sunny. You do not want fluky stuff to enter the equation. You want to be able to just play a game. But Indiana is not a prohibitive underdog at all, but it's clearly not expected to win by Vegas. So if you're Notre Dame, you don't really want miserable conditions. You also want conditions, whatever conditions lead to loud fan participation, especially when Indiana has the ball. Whatever leads to, I don't know. Does noise travel better in freezing temperatures or in warmer climes? It was pretty loud at Kyle Field. It was awfully hot there. Maybe you want it above freezing so people can, don't have icicles when they open their mouths. They're going to need to make some noise because Cignetti has said multiple times they did not handle the silent count that they had to go with at Ohio State, and they screwed up a bunch of stuff there, and it really set them back. And they're tremendously efficient offense otherwise.
Notre Dame did send out an email right around this time yesterday on Monday that said the game is officially sold out. There are no tickets to be had by the general public. All tickets are accounted for. I believe Indiana was given, their allotment is about 3,500 tickets for a stadium that seats just over 77,000 people. So if you want to go to this football game, don't call Jackson Neal. Don't call Mike Berardino. You're going to have to go to the secondary market where, looking at some of these prices,
it's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Mike, would you pay $1,657 for a ticket behind the Notre Dame bench?
Is Taylor Swift the halftime act?
She is not the halftime act. I don't even know if she's the pregame act in the Joyce Center parking lot.
Is DJ Cool coming back? Maybe that factors in because he's pretty good. I think I'm predicting DJ Cool sighting. Bon Jovi actually going to play at halftime? Maybe that bumps it up a little.
Is he $1,657 cool?
Not for me, no.
No. So the ticket market is crazy. I think the cheapest one I'm looking at right here on StubHub.com is upper level end zone. Looks like even one of the last two rows in the south end of the stadium. One ticket, $708.
I had been seeing like something like there had been like none below 1,000, so I guess that's a little bit of a deal.
That's a little better.
That's a little better,
There's not a bad seat in the house, though.
No,
exactly. All sight lines are great, nothing obstructed, and we're way up on the 9th floor. We can see just fine.
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to say there's not a bad seat in the house except for where we sit because we sit way up there.
We're pretty close to the snacks, so it's okay.
That's all that matters.
I agree with that.
Hot coffee, and a snack mix, and I'm good. And binoculars.
So $1,500 for a ticket. If you want to stay in South Bend, Indiana, good luck. I'm looking at some of these hotels on Hotels.com. How about the Four Winds Casino Hotel in South Bend, Indiana? One night will run you $1,499.
But a free buffet.
and you can go play blackjack for a couple hours before.
Yeah, win it all back.
Here's the topper so far as we sit here on December 10th. Let's get a room at the La Quinta Suites by Wyndham in the South Bend, Notre Dame area. Breakfast is included, though.
Okay.
Breakfast is included. One night, $2,399. One stinking night.
The La Quinta.
La Quinta.
Spanish for next to Denny's. All right. Well, the other thing is Airbnb. All of our listeners, I'm sure, who are in the Airbnb situation, who are already approved Airbnb hosts, what a chance to I used to work in Augusta, Georgia. That was the week for people, Masters Week, to get right on their mortgage. And this is an opportunity. This is, holiday time. Go lock it up and send that code over through Airbnb and pay your mortgage for about half the year. Go ahead, depending on where you're at. It's tailor made. And of course, then come back if you have tickets already. You'll come back and cheer for your team, the home team. But maybe you'll have to work on those logistics. But what an opportunity! If the ticket prices and the hotel prices match up with Airbnb, it is like a major golf tournament.
I mean, I might be working like that. I might be working that whole night. Might as well just put my place up for an Airbnb at that point.
Any pets you got to get rid of?
No pets or anything. I gotta,
All right. So what is Jackson Neal charging one night for an Airbnb?
500. One bedroom in Mishawaka. I do have a Christmas tree up, so I get a little festive too.
You got to make it worth your while. Just go like 1,500, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like something like that. I'll take that.
Well, we did get some football news on Sunday. Marcus Freeman met the media on Zoom for about 15 minutes after all the college football playoff or the selection show had been decided. Knew that Notre Dame was playing number 10 Indiana, knew it was going to be Friday, December 20th, 8 p.m. kickoff on ESPN, ABC. Not a lot of news coming from Marcus Freeman other than the fact that, hey, guess what? They're excited that they're going to be able to host a game against Indiana. Thank you, Marcus, for that. Some of the quick hitters, Howard Cross, probable with his ankle injury. Kingston Viliama Asa, definitely out. When I saw KVA limping basically out of up the tunnel at USC in Los Angeles over Thanksgiving break, it looks really hard for him that he's going to even play the rest of this season. So don't expect KVA to be back anytime soon. But Jeremiah Love, who Mike had said watching the game on TV that they said it was a knee injury. It looked like more of his lower leg was wrapped than his knee. But Marcus Freeman says Jeremiah Love will be probable. Notre Dame needs Jeremiah Love 10 days from now.
Mm-hmm.
Needs Howard Cross too, and Donovan Heinisch has been outstanding filling in, but Howard Cross is All-America quality, run stuffer and pass rusher, and kind of the uncrowned captain of this team. He should have been a captain as well, but he has not played since the Florida State game, and you can really see that they need him at his best with that ankle. He has warmed up, right, Tom, several times before these games, but has not seen a single snap since the second quarter against Florida State. And, it's go time. He'll give it a go, no doubt about it. But how effective will he be able to make it through the game? Will he be able to, will he be available if a 4-team run is necessary? Notre Dame certainly hopes so. And for Jeremiah Love, yes, that as explosive as it gets, maybe the one thing that is sacrificed after a scare like that is the hurdling. Maybe because I've noticed he's set up the hurdle now. He likes that hurdle. It certainly is great for branding. He set up the Army guy, no doubt about it, Yankee Stadium. He did not need to wait for him to hurdle him into the end zone. The USC, that seemed a little more organic, but it might be a good idea to just lower that shoulder, buddy, and do what he's done. Boy, more. You knew the speed and the elusiveness would be there, the electric nature of him, but he's a tough runner, and the number of tackles he's broken, and good luck getting him down. And you compare that with Jadarian Price and Aeneas Williams, and that's as good a backfield group as you'll find in the country.
The only semi-normal segment that we will keep with this show, Jackson Neal. Let's do a little Irish rewind. We'll talk about this game now because a week from now it's not going to really matter. It doesn't really matter right now, although Notre Dame did win. We'll rewind back to November 30th. Notre Dame 49, USC 35. The 10-win over 10-week run is complete for the Irish. USC's driving for the tying touchdown with 3:39 left in the game, and watching in the press box from Los Angeles, I'm thinking this thing's going overtime. But Christian Gray, play of the year? Yes or no? Mike?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yeah.
Christian Gray, undisputed play of the year, 99-yard interception return for a touchdown. 2 minutes later, Xavier Watts says, I see your interception return, and I'll do you 1 yard better. And he takes it 100 yards for an interception. So they get 2 touchdown returns in the last 3 minutes of the game. The Irish run game dominates. They get 258 yards rushing. Jadarian Price, 12 carries, 111 yards. Jeremiah Love, 13 for 99 before leaving with the lower leg injury. Riley Leonard goes 17 of 22, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. And that Irish defense looked like they finally felt the effects of playing in New York City 1 week, coming back, and then going to Los Angeles the following week, because USC rolls up 29 first downs, 557 total yards on an Al Golden defense. And seeing Al Golden after the game, I don't know if there was anybody who was more relieved post-game than Al Golden after giving up 557. So Xavier Watts, team high 9 tackles, and the aforementioned Tyler Buckner runs a fake punt pass for 23 yards. So all in all, Notre Dame wraps up 10 wins over 10 weeks. Didn't look pretty defensively, but you know what? They get it done, 49-35. Thoughts?
Davis Sherwood gets some credit, too. Davis Sherwood also did the pop pass to Braden Lindsey, was hugely important in the Gator Bowl a couple years ago. And every time he was involved with the play. Also, Jaden Harrison and Love at Georgia Tech on the fake punt. So when Davis Sherwood gets involved on the trickeration, it works without a hitch. But I just want to pop that in there.
He needed a Davis Sherwood reference.
Yes.
Of course.
Jackson,
Well, you can screw that. It's the first point. It's the first part of the play. And if he drops the ball, by the way, Georgia ran a nice fake punt the other day with Mike Bobo's kid.
Yes.
And I covered Mike Bobo as a Georgia quarterback. And, he's still kind of a skinny, scrawny guy. His kid's massive.
He's number 74.
His kid's like 6'5", 3 bills, and they let him be and that had to be the first giveaway. What is that?
Yeah,
you never have a personal protector, shield guy that big.
You've got number 74 as the up man and the fake punt. Guess what? They're running a fake punt with number 74 and somehow.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And he handled it beautifully. Yeah, he did his job. Jackson,
any tension there as USC looked, because every time it looked like, all right, Notre Dame's got this. Mm-hmm. They go up 14, then it's 7, then it's tied, then it's this, then it's back and forth, and then they look, for all intents and purposes, it looked like it was going to be a tie game before Christian Gray, who had an awful day before that with the penalties, with being beaten in pass protection. Christian Gray's like, yeah, you know what? I got this. I'm going to go 99 yards. And as soon as he made that pick, you could see he had nothing but the end zone in front of him. And as soon as he made that pick, you're thinking, all right, that's it. They're going to this college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, great win, but you're right. There still is a little bit of concern there, just from the standpoint of, okay, you put up 49 points, but you needed 200 yards of interception return yard, 200, you know what I mean? Two basically 100-yard interception returns for a touchdown in order to get to those 49 points. Put up allowing 35. You mentioned, 557 yards of offense for USC. Now going against an Indiana offense that's the best in the country, one of the best in the country in terms of statistics. It kind of depends on which stat you pick there. I think it was just kind of a game, like you mentioned with Gray. Obviously, the interception return for touchdowns, all we're going to focus on, but did struggle, earlier throughout the game. You mentioned the penalties and things like that. A game where maybe the Benjamin Morrison, not having him, kind of came into play a little bit. Overall, good win. You're right, going from New York to LA, that's tough, especially on the defense, but a little bit of concern there if you're Notre Dame in terms of you needed those 2 pick sixes to put up 49 points, and you also allowed that many, and now you have an Indiana offense that's one of the highest scoring in the country. That's where the only concern for me comes from.
Mike, how much can this help a guy like Al Golden when he gets his defense lit up for 557 to be like, all right, I'm going to dial up some things that Indiana doesn't see coming?
Yeah, Curtis Rourke, you thought life in the Big Ten was tough. Wait till you see what this blitz package looks like. I would have, yes, every extra preparation day that this Notre Dame staff has been given, whether it's a bye week, whether it's going into a season opener, whether it's going into a bowl game, has been used to great effect in the Marcus Freeman era. And they lost the first one because that was on the fly after taking over the Fiesta Bowl. And then they lost the Ohio State game, which was rock'em sock'em, and they were almost leading into the fourth quarter. But since then, every time you give Marcus Freeman and company at least one extra day, two weeks extra, whatever, or 2 weeks between games, in this case, it's 12 days, and then there'll be, if they win this one, there'd be another 12 days for the Georgia game. And yes, Al Golden in particular, but now Mike Denbrock as well, lethal in those circumstances because they know what to do with the extra time. I would imagine in some cases, kind of like being a writer, in some case, if you could give some of us, you could say, well, just take, 2 weeks to write that story. No, I'm going to write it right now. And this time you give me more time, it's just, I'll just obsess about it and I'll screw it up. Maybe that's like that for some coaches, coordinators, putting in a game plan. But these guys, the extra time allows them to just decipher you as an opponent, your individual quirks. They go back. And when Al Golden was facing the Louisville quarterback, Tyler Shuck, we get to say Tyler Shuck again. He didn't just go back and look at his stuff at Texas Tech. He went back and looked at his stuff at Oregon too. And by the time he got here as the Louisville quarterback, yeah, he heard him a couple of times. But overall, Notre Dame had the plan it took to beat Tyler Shuck. And I would imagine that every snap that Curtis Rourke took at Ohio, and he was very productive in the MAC at Ohio, and then now at Indiana, will all be anything that those guys need to know as a defense, as the players executing the plan. They'll have it. And same way that Denbrock will put the thing together to keep things humming on offense. It just comes down to protect the ball. The plan will be sound. The plan will be what it needs to be. And it just comes down to some of the vagaries of football and sometimes the officiating too. Poorly timed penalties. We saw that throughout conference championship weekend. Penalties and sometimes phantom penalties can really be or uncalled. Sometimes they just miss it. A la Riley Mills punching a guy.
Yeah,
How do you miss
crazy.
A 6'6" guy throwing a right hook on a guy on the ground?
Gene Steratore was brought in during that review, and he's like, "Yeah, that's an ejection. They can look at that. They did not see it. They did not see it. So, thankfully for Notre Dame, because they might not have made it through that game without a guy that important to what they do. But no, that was crazy."
Biggest question coming out of USC, Jackson. You're a young guy who appeals to the young crowd. All white uniforms, yes or no?
I like them. I
don't like those.
I knew you were going to say that.
No. Don't mess with the white jerseys and the gold pants. Those are the perfect road uniforms for Notre Dame. White pants, blue jerseys like they played in Atlanta. Get rid of those. Get rid of those white ones unless you're going to wear the icy whites like you wore against BYU. But all white uniforms in the Coliseum against a traditional rival. Wear your traditional uniforms. Is that too much to ask?
Do you think there's some element? They are 2-0 in those now in that combination. Is there? But this was the first time they got a chance to play on natural grass, right? So you got a little dirty. You got the mud stains,
little grass stains going.
Yeah, I like that.
You look like you're working harder than the opponent there. The opponent. The grass stains don't show up as easily. Why did Pete Rose slide head first? It wasn't just to be safe. He wanted you to know he was going to outwork you every day. He's gone now. But I don't know. I think I'm with Tom on this in general. The tradition is a tradition-laden program, and the goal, nothing wrong with the goal. But if they, at some point go back to I guess they're probably not going to play on any more grass unless I'm.
No grass. All turf.
Yeah.
Notre Dame Stadium, turf.
Orange Bowl? Orange Bowl nowadays?
Yeah, maybe that is. Grass. That's your lay of the land. You should know that. That's grass stadium.
They changed the stadium. They have a roof now, but it was grass before. Yeah, it's whatever. That's uniform, and then you get the cleats. That's another story, but. People want to look fast. The best thing to do is just to actually be fast. And Notre Dame has some fast people. One other thing about the USC game, and I think this is, what was that number of total offense? 560 something? You said
557.
Yeah, and not a cross word said about Leonard Moore. Not a bit of concern about Leonard Moore taking over for Benjamin Morrison. Pretty much since he got in there.
Right.
What player he has been for them and in the run support, whereas Al Golden, to me, that's quote of the year, that sometimes the soul of your soul as a defense is revealed by the way your defensive backs tackle, to paraphrase. And Leonard Moore loves run support and wraps up and is really hard to beat one-on-one. And just out, no concern. Oh, how are you going to go into the postseason with the guy's going to be out there virtually every snap on an island, and Notre Dame fans should not be concerned. This guy is rock solid, future All-America.
What's the biggest surprise from a player standpoint where you look at the two guys when we sat here in August and they said they cannot afford to lose either Charles Jagusaw at left tackle or Benjamin Morrison, your shutdown corner, and now you have Anthony Knapp, who has started every game as the left tackle, or Leonard Moore as the true freshman. Let me just step in for Benjamin Morrison and be just as good, and it's sometimes better than Ben Morrison. Like, what's the bigger story there? It's almost a tie. Like, you didn't see any of those two guys coming, and then to sit here on December 10th and say Leonard Moore, yeah, I mean, he just does what he does. And same with Anthony Knapp. I know he struggled a little bit, but Anthony Knapp to go out and play and start every single game, who would have ever thought that was going to happen back in August?
No, you're right. I mean, great job by Joe Rudolph and the rest of their offensive staff. First, to recognize him as a better option than Tosh Baker going into the season. You know, Tosh Baker, company man, loyal Notre Dame guy, but a little short throughout his career on being entrusted with the starting snaps throughout, and that was a big roll of the dice against that front seven. That's all, you know, several headed to the first round of the NFL at A&M. And Knapp made it through that one, and he's made it through 11 more. And, yes, there have been a couple of hiccups along the way. There was an injury scare where he hurt his ankle pop when I asked him about that against Florida State, and he missed only, a handful of snaps. He was right back in the next series, too, so he missed one series. That kid is tough. And, what do they say? Usually by about midseason, you're not a freshman anymore. They say that in all the sports. It's about midseason. There are no freshmen here anymore. Same applies to Bryce Young. It certainly applied to Kingston until he got hurt. Up and down the line, there's guys that Aeneas Williams, trust him in third down pass protection? Absolutely. That's a freshman. So, and as Chad Bowden said on signing day, the effect of playing the freshman and winning, you could see it go both ways. You could see in the recruiting room for people who want to play right away, they might be like, whoa, I'm looking at that. I see a freshman at my position. How am I ever going to play ahead of him? He's already starting or playing significant snaps. But actually, it's about opportunity. It's about a program that is willing to coach you up in real time, in time for the opener at A&M, and then trust you to keep improving week to week. And that's what has happened with this talent. So you bring in the talent, but how many times? I know freshmen play around the country more than ever, but for this volume and to be stepping in for guys who, in the case of Morrison, are going in the first round in the spring, that's astounding. I mean, that to not have a hiccup that cost you a game somewhere. Mac Brown, now North Carolina,
former coach Mac Brown.
For now, yeah, we'll see where he'd probably go run a smaller program somewhere. He's, national championship coach Mac Brown with Texas. He would say, I think he would attribute this to Donnie Duncan. He loved Donnie Duncan stories. He was the Oklahoma athletic director back when he got started with Switzer. And he'd say, Donnie Duncan always said, you lose one game for every true freshman you play. And he would say that in the 80s. And they don't say that anymore. That's exactly how he would say it, too. And I love that, and it always stuck with me. But it no longer applies.
Well, we're just sitting back here listening to Mike Berardino riff about Donnie Duncan.
Donnie Duncan.
Once we get a Donnie Duncan reference, we know we're almost done with the pod.
Well, Tom, I was thinking about Donnie Duncan earlier today, actually.
Sure you were. Before Mike joined us, we were actually talking about Donnie Duncan here in the studio.
Just weren't recording.
Okay, so we'll wrap this up here after our Donnie Duncan reference. Moving forward, it's going to be kind of a weird week for Notre Dame because they're playing a Friday night home game, so that means everything is moved up a day next week. So Monday is really Sunday, Tuesday is really Monday, so that's just going to totally confuse Mike Berardino as far as where to go and what to do. We even get to see practice. We see some practice next week. I know it's only the first 5 periods, and they're just going to stretch and do nothing. But they are opening it up to the media for the first time since August. So we have Marcus Freeman. We have 10 players on Sunday. We have the 3 coordinators.
That's a lot of players.
That's a lot of players, but we got a lot of good stories coming out of that. We get We get Howard Cross. We get Jeremiah Love. We get Jack Kaiser. We get everybody who's anybody as far as talking. Xavier Watts, Riley Leonard. So it's Bo Collins. Like Bo Collins was the one that said to me, "Yeah, we just kind of messed around during NIU week." So we get 10 players. 10 players on Sunday. We get all the 3 coordinators on Monday. We get practice viewing on Monday, and then it's the regular week. We will come back with our next episode of Pot of Gold Tuesday. Jackson, is that good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, we'll do Tuesday, Pot of Gold and TV. That's it for this. For Mike, for Jackson, I'm Tom. Until next week, we'll see you.
This has been the South Bend Tribune's Pot of Gold podcast, your home for insightful Notre Dame football coverage and analysis.